in one part of the community basically applied for the same kind of recognition that would be given to.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. This is the North Central
Yes.
Business District, which was kind of subverted. It was supposed to be a neighborhood association, and they came before the city council to suggest that they just want the same rights that any neighborhood association would have.
Right.
And I agreed with them. I thought that's what they ought to have.
And with those meetings, those would be open. But we're not going to open up everybody's board meeting and tell them what they're thinking 3 years down the road in terms of land acquisition, sales, development plans. We don't open it up to them.
Do you think that the city's new notification procedure of the minute an application is submitted, sending out a notification to neighbors helps with that situation because you get it at the very beginning instead of when things are coming before P&Z?
It does help, but I don't think it's enough. I mean, we're talking about applications that have been in the works probably for a year or so before we ever get to the point that we have to have notification for, in general notification for the folks that are involved. Now, I don't know whether I agree with you or not. I mean, I appreciate the fact that there is a necessity for some confidence, particularly when it comes to some of these contracts.
Right.
I'm not sure I know what the solution is to this. All I know is that is often the source of some of the problems between whether the neighborhood associations think that the businesses or the applicants have an advantage or not, because they've been negotiating with the city staff for a long time before some of the neighbors are even aware of what's going on. I mean, this is a real sticky problem.
Well,
and not only that, so many of these projects are publicly subsidized that they invite this level of public scrutiny, and it becomes ethically and morally kind of wrong to say, well, no, we want a TDD, we want a TIF, we want this kind of a subsidy or that kind of a subsidy.
Publicly subsidized
right.
because of TDDs.
Exactly. And then to say, but we don't want a lot of public scrutiny, whether it be from neighborhood associations or whomever. And I think that's, but that invites public scrutiny because it's a public-private partnership. And in the end, often of questionable benefit to the public. So many of these big, high-profile projects that have drawn in the interest of neighborhood associations have also been very much funded by TDDs. They've been a huge issue here. And that seems like having it both ways. Well, we want all this public subsidy, but we don't want the public scrutiny.
Let's back up, just for the audience out there. A TDD is a Transportation Development District. This is an entity that is established by the state, is granted by the state, it's the state judiciary, essentially. The city has no role in this. This is an organization that combines itself to get together to establish a way to reimburse themselves for infrastructure projects that the city is not capable of offering at the moment because we simply don't have the kind of cash.
It's an added tax
right.
normally
to
sales.
Usually and at this point it's anywhere from 0.5% to 1%. In this case, 0.5% is the mode.
But the establishment of each of those districts is a matter of public record.
It is a matter of
public record before it's implemented.
But getting to that point is where the public comes in, and because that's a creature of the judiciary, having this public involvement is kind of an ad hoc way of assuring that there is some kind of public input. You know, if it were legislated, maybe that wouldn't be maybe it wouldn't be as necessary, or people wouldn't feel the need to get so involved. But they have to because it all goes through the courts. And that proceeding in and of itself is much more closed than it would be
Unfortunately,
if it were
I mean,
in
front
of the city council.
The public is invited to participate in the meetings, but the public nor the city has any jurisdiction over these TDDs.
Unless the city becomes a member of.
Well, the city can collect the dollars.
That's right.
But the city is really never a partner in these TDDs. I'm not suggesting that TDDs are wrong. I mean, sometimes. Right. You do need the infrastructure and there's no other way to do it, and this may be an appropriate way to do it. What I'm suggesting is there are some downsides to this. That is, the city almost always buys into these TDDs because the powers that be, the folks that make these applications, everybody's working in the public interest to try and generate revenue dollars so we can pay our bills. There's no question about that.
Well, and they're trying to establish some of the infrastructure that,
Sure.
that is needed and is not used simply and singly by a particular landowner. It's used by the public at large. And
Absolutely.
that's what justifies it.
But the problem is, the other side of that equation, that's what justifies it, you're absolutely right. But the other side of that equation is that there is no real, it preempts the city's abilities to put their own dollars, their own taxpayer dollars, in projects where they want to, because they're drawn into these TDDs to participate because they almost have to. That's the issue, and I suspect.
And you know what, these subsidies, I've been working on a story here about a hidden subsidy that most of the developers here take advantage of. It allows you to sort of bank vacant land as agricultural, as long as you have a few hay bales out there and sometimes an idle tractor. And essentially what it's a kind of a hidden quirk of state law that allows a developer to buy some land that's been classified as agricultural, maybe used as farmland before, and then sort of leave it that way indefinitely. And I'm looking at a 133-acre parcel across the street from the Kroenke estate, owned by Mr. Kroenke, that appears to be classified like that is appraised by the county assessor for $40,000. It's over on the corner of Nifong and Sinclair. He's owned that for 10 years. He's paid virtually no property taxes on it. He's going to develop it most likely. There are gas lines in there, sewer lines, water lines, you name it. And the amount of that subsidy, when you, and this is all over the county, it's all over the city, it's all over the state. When you add the amount of those unpaid property taxes up, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So again, my point is this. You know, the subsidies are all over the place, and I don't know how much they benefit John Q. Public. And I think that the public involvement in questioning this stuff, and public involvement in neighborhood associations, et cetera, there shouldn't be any fettering or tamping down going on, because the power differential is so great between the big developer and John Q. Public that it really mandates that John Q. Public have an even louder voice, not a softer voice or a more controlled voice.
Now that parcel of land, though, is not developed yet, right?
It isn't developed yet, and
so it should be assessed at the lower
Right.
rate by state law.
No,
He's
no.
not doing anything.
Well,
No,
and
that's
that protects
actually-
other owners that are on
Yeah.
the fringe who don't develop their property. Then, you know, are they going to get assessed for more because of potentially what it's
no,
worth? Even if they
actually
don't
the
have...
law doesn't say that. It says it has to be actively used as farmland, not just
Right.
zoned
So if
that
I
way.
own a farm,
If you own a
on the
farm and you're
edge.
actively using it, you know, and you're an active farmer, then that's fine. But if you own farmland and you're not actively farming it and you're just sort of banking it for future development, you're the one that would be hit with the property taxes, not the people around you who are actively farming their land.
So what would it be classified as then? Residential?
No, it would be classified as vacant farm.
Okay. All right, and that is then vacant, then it pays in an agricultural rate.
No, it doesn't.
Why?
It pays in at full market value if it's not being actively
Is that
used as a farm.
residential or is that commercial? Which one?
It's considered unused farmland
And
if
it
it's
comes
not
in
being actively used.
12%?
No, that's assessment. The actual appraised value is what the designation of the
But I
property
mean,
is based on.
the rate would be what, 12%?
The rate of assessment would be, actually, for vacant farm, yeah, the rate of assessment would stay at 12, but the appraised value would go from a farmland appraisal to a full market value appraisal, if it's not being used as farm. So,
I have
and,
no-
see, and this,
Yeah.
you see all this all over the
but
place.
what if you're not even using it as farm? You just have a home on a large acreage lot that's A1, which is what happens a lot in the county.
They allow you to use up to 5 acres around the home that's designated residential. And if you're actively farming the rest of it, then it would be agricultural. If you're not actively farming the rest of it, I don't think you see that very often, where you see somebody that's no longer there. But if